some forever, not for better, and some have gone, and some remain. All these places have their moments, with lovers and friends. I still can recall summer days and summer living, but in my life I love them all. But of all these friends and lovers, there is no one compared with you, and these memories lose their meaning when I think of love as something new. Though I know I'll never ever lose affection for people and things that went before. I know I'll often stop and think about them, but in my life I've loved you more. Though I know I'll never ever lose affection for people and things that went before. I know I'll often stop and think about them, but in my life I've loved you more. In my
The first time we heard that song, we were in church, and it was just a haunting memory. And my wife just said, "You need to find out who that was, because I want that song." So that was my job. I always had a list of jobs, and the next day I found it for her. But this version actually came to us from a friend of ours, friend of my wife's, who used to work for Mountain Apple. So she got an original recording done on a DVD that was signed by him, Kaylee Rochelle, and so that was that version. This that you're looking at now, this picture, this is a ferry boat that would take your car and passengers from Falmouth, Massachusetts, which is right at the mouth of Cape Cod, and take you over to Martha's Vineyard. Martha's Vineyard's been in the news a lot lately, not for the same reasons that we went. We immigrated there just to vacation, and this is Rita's uncle, Uncle Nick, and we'd go there, or they would go there. We went after we got married. We still went there when I was in dental school. We'd go on vacation visit. This is where Rita kind of learned to fish. She liked fishing in the ocean. So now we've moved ahead a lot to where we're in high school. Rita and I first met when we were early teenagers. I didn't have a driver's license, so I had to try to bum a ride anytime we went anywhere. And so I was always dependent on other people to get me around and to pick my wife up, or my girlfriend at the time. So this was, I think I was in 10th grade and she was in 9th grade. That's when we first started dating. So we dated for like 7 years before we got married. This was that was her sophomore year. This is her junior year in high school. And that's her brother's sports car. He lived in Colorado and he drove it in. This is her senior picture from high school. So that's in the yearbook. I have the yearbook up here. Rita was their homecoming queen in '65. I was away at college, but I came home for it because I knew she was going to be a homecoming queen. So, and went to the dance and did all the fun things that you do with the homecoming queen. The football that's up here was the football in this picture where the captain of the football team was giving it to her, and she's getting crowned by the shortest guy on the team. So, and this is her riding around, being driven around the field. I'm not sure how they did that, but because the track I didn't know was wide enough for a car, maybe so. And she's driven by the president of her class, who was also a football player, so it's like he changed somewhere in between and went back out onto the field. So now we're jumping ahead to our wedding. We got married 3 weeks after she graduated from college because her father would not let her get married until she graduated from college. So we pretty much had it timed just about right. So on the 6th of June, 1970, we got married, and I didn't know that June 6th was D-Day, and everybody kept saying, "You're getting married on D-Day." So didn't mean as much to me then. We're avoiding the rice. So we were all given short breath mints, and so that's why we just sort of happened to stick our tongue out, and the photographer took a picture of it. The photographer was a very interesting guy. He also played the drums in the band, and it was a really good band. But he actually wasn't their drummer. They had a drummer, but he loved playing the drums, and so he would, when we were looking for him to take pictures, if we couldn't find him, we knew he was drumming in the band. So this was us trying not to get cake all over our faces, but pretty successful. And this was me galloping out of the room and to take her on our honeymoon. It was an exhausting day, but we made it. So then, I was drafted, not by any sports teams, but by U.S. Army, or Uncle Sam or somebody. And so this was one of our few pictures that we were able to find from Fort Dix, New Jersey. So I was a medical service corps officer and kind of a hospital administrator for a while. And Rita was able to get a teaching position. She actually had her first teaching position was right after we got married. We moved to Morgantown, West Virginia. Well, I was already there. I was in graduate school. And she joined me, and she was able to get a job at a small school. There was only one class per grade, and the principal drove the school bus, and I'm not sure who cooked in the cafeteria, but Rita taught there, and it was an interesting school because the kids there were products of coal miners, and they had a different philosophy on life, and so the kids didn't know what a magazine was, so we took magazines to them. Some of them didn't wear a lot of shoes, and they had a real meager life. So Rita got a real clue as to what Appalachia was all about that first year. I think it left a lasting impression on her. And this was our first house. This was at Fort Dix, New Jersey. You had an A and a B, and we were on side A, 1660 Cedar Street. And she enjoyed it. She enjoyed having her own kitchen, and we sort of had fun. Then, Rita was actually very talented, and she made my outfit. She said it took 3 yards of cloth to make my dress. And so our freshman year, every year my class had a Halloween party, so that was our freshman year. And it sort of speaks for itself. The next year I thought we'd roughen it up a little bit. So The Godfather had been out a couple years earlier, so I sort of went as a gangster, sort of like a Bonnie and Clyde deal. And that was more believable. Then we found these masks, and they were just unbelievable. When we were driving there, I stopped at a traffic light, and I looked to my left and saw my reflection, and it scared the And I almost zoomed in front of and hit the car in front of me. And we go, "What are you doing?" I go, "Oh my God, I was just frightened by the out that says it's you." So anyway, so we got to the party and we sat there and we didn't say anything. We just sort of, were sitting there mumbling to each other, almost like I forget the name of the show that was on, where the old guy just sort of grumbled. So I just sort of sat there and grumbled, but I had to let them know it was me because they were getting ready to throw me out. They didn't like who we looked like. So the next year we thought we'd go with something a little bit more pleasing to the eye. And so I went as Hugh Hefner. And that was far more unbelievable than Rita going in as Playboy Bunny. She fit the part. And funny because a number of guys that I was stationed with out at Schofield got a hold of this picture, and then I got a lot of emails, actually there weren't emails, letters, phone calls saying, "Hey, could you send me that picture?" I never sent it to anyone. So this was when we were in dental school, and I took this picture. This was at our dining room table, and I bought this special filter for it. And it was like Rita was a dreamer. She always had these dreams. Well, her dream that year, that was my junior year, was for us to come to Hawaii. And I'm like, show me it on the map. And I'm like, we've got Aruba, Cancun, we've got all these places that are, same time zone. I said, so how far away is this? And to be honest with you, I really didn't know. I knew of Arthur Godfrey, and he liked Hawaii, and it used to be talked about in my house growing up, but I personally would never looked into it. So I looked into it, and she made me go to Hawaii. And so Rita was very persuasive. So this was us. When you go to a luau, they take your picture. It's like, at this point in time, it's probably $3 for the picture. Now it's probably $25 or $35. But we took this, and we bought it, a couple bucks. But I showed this to my office staff. So this was 1977, August of 1977. I showed this to my staff, I don't know, somewhere probably in 2000, 2002. And actually, Janine, who was checking people in up front, she says, "Hey, where's that picture of you when you first came here?" So I gave it to her, and she brought it up front, and I heard a scream. I'm like, oh my God, somebody fell. So I went up front to see what it was about, and here, my assistant, who'd been my assistant for a couple of years, the Wahine on my left is her mother. And so, Hawaii's a small world. But that's, and her daughter looks just like that. And her daughter looks like that. So when we were here visiting, we went to Paradise Park, and we got to hold the parrots. And the parrots on my shoulder left some stuff for me. And I was able to clean it off later. Rita took to the beach, says, "I like it here." Initially I didn't, because it was between my junior and senior year, and it was a tough time getting through your junior year to go into your senior year, and so I was still keyed up. I was one of those gunners in class and wanted to be not at the bottom of it. So at the second week, I was happy. The second week I didn't want to leave. It was like, I like this place, let's just stay here. But I had to go back to school, so here we are at Pearl Harbor. You can see I spent a lot of time in the sun, both of us. That's probably the whitest my teeth have ever been. So then I had to go to a one-year GPR program, just like we have here at Queens. This was at Fort Benning, Georgia, at the hospital. And four of the people that are in this picture are actually in this room. Yeah, one of them's on the table over here. And she can't join us, but she is here in spirit. Trust me, she is. And so the person to the far right on the picture is Mike Bailey. He's an orthodontist on Hawaii. Probably a lot of you know him. He's here with his wife, Marie, and one of his twins, his daughter, who's a pilot she flies out of Pittsburgh, and she's my godchild. So they're here. And then to the left, on the very end, the guy in the middle, is Rafe Shaw. He was an honor graduate out of Georgetown. Talk about a gunner. And but he became an orthodontist, and he's here. He flew in. Where did he fly in from? Right? Virginia. Ray flew in from Virginia. So thank you for coming. But I don't know if you guys have seen this. I haven't seen Ray for many, many, many years. Mike, I see intermittently, unless I go to Hawaii, then I see him a lot. And that's me up front, and Rita's in the back holding that picture up to her head. So I found out that I could go to Hawaii as an assignment if I went to Korea. So we went to Korea, and in an unaccompanied tour, but Rita was able to come along with me because I was able to get what they call Cap Y, which is civilian airfare. So I was able to buy her ticket on the same plane. So we were never really separated. And we flew together, and it was wonderful. She got a job. As soon as we arrived, she got a job teaching elementary school at the international school. And then she taught on weekends and evenings, she taught English to Korean students, university students. And that was a great deal for her. They would take her to the zoo, they'd take her to restaurants, they would wine her and dine her, and then pay her for just talking to them. I was not as good a deal. I couldn't compete with that. So we spent our year in Korea and enjoyed it immensely, and then we came to Hawaii. And Rita never really got Hawaii out of her system. She was very angry with me that I was taking her out of here because I was accepted into residency. So I had to go to my residency, and I dragged her through the gate and onto the plane, and we left. But we left a little bit more than what we came with because she was pregnant with Leanne, my oldest daughter. So there they are. This was in South Carolina. Leanne was born in Augusta, Georgia, where we spent 2 years. And then Dena came along a couple months or a couple years later, 1986. So 83 and 86. And while we were there in South Carolina, Rita got her master's degree. Never wanted to let time slip under her feet. She, says, hey, I got a husband, he can babysit. So she went and got her master's degree, which I was glad she did. So there we are, still in South Carolina. Here we are back in Hawaii in 1989. This was for the ADA 1989. We're still living in South Carolina, but we flew to Hawaii for the ADA convention. And that was fortuitous because at that point in time, I was asked if I would like an assignment to Hawaii. And I knew there was no openings. And I said, yeah, who's leaving? They said, nobody, we're just going to bring you here excess. So that's what I did. I came here excess, so there we are about 9-10 months later on the beach. We had to endure Fort DeRussy for 45 days. And before we moved into our condemned officers' quarters. True story. So then we would explore the lava fields. For every Thanksgiving, we would go to KMC, which is Kilauea military something, military camp. And because it was like being back in New England with lava. Because it was cool and there were turkeys running around, and it was just a lot of fun. So every Thanksgiving we would go there, and there were a group of us that went. Linda Undercoff was here. She would go on those trips with us. Her husband's the guy that usually organized them. And so we enjoyed that. And then I decided to open a practice. My accountant advised against it. My architect advised against it. My builder said, hey, I don't care what you do, just as long as you pay me. And so I built an office out and opened November 12th of 1994. So that was just right before Thanksgiving, when nobody wants to go to the Ala Moana shopping center. And because traffic is so bad, it's hard to get parking. And then in the newspaper about a week later, it says, we've been in a recession for about 6 weeks and we didn't know it. And so, things were, not looking good economically. But in January, we kind of turned the corner, and it's because we had it blessed. This is Father, how do you pronounce it? Yeah, Father Kekimanu. He, I guess, is a very prestigious person to have a picture of, or to have bless you. I didn't know anything about him. The guy on the right was my parish priest at Tripler, and he was also my patient. And so him I knew. Father Kekimanu came and blessed it, and it must have worked because my practice did well. And Rita got a job teaching initially. She taught at Maryknoll for 5 years. Then she moved to Punahou. And at Punahou, she was very creative. When we were in South Carolina, she was getting her master's degree. They actually had, the governor's office wanted her to go because she got this reputation for being a very creative person. And she would just do things. And some of the things that she would do as an independent study just blew them away, and so they wanted her to get on the governor's staff to go around the state and teach creativity. But I said, no, we're moving to Hawaii, don't get involved with that stuff. And so that's what happened. So when she got to Punahou, Maryknoll didn't have some of the things that they could offer the students that she found at Punahou, because they had more space and land and funds and everything else. So she started this sustainability project with her kids. And they built this little sustainability vegetable garden. They harvested it, they made soup out of it, and they took it down to the homeless shelter and fed people on it. So she taught the kids kind of the full cycle of building this thing and then putting the dirt in it. And they also had a worm farm. You haven't lived till you've dealt with a worm farm. And then they grew their vegetables. And it was a good project. Here she is at the Bolo Chinese home, taking her kids there to sing. She just did a lot of things with the kids. And then our daughter Leanne graduated from Punahou in 2002 and went on to become a dentist in Colorado. And Dena graduated in 2005, and now she works at a medical center in Kalispell, Montana. And she does all of their, what do you do?
Fundraising.
Fundraising. That's the word. I'm glad I've got a smart audience. And so she's, she enjoys writing and bringing in funds. And this was at Rita's 60th birthday, and we had this at John and Paulette Hall's. They had the wine experience. And it was just fabulous. We had a lot of our Rotarians went there to this, and it was just a great time. And our neighbors went there. The dog park people in the back were invited. They were all there. So if you weren't invited, it's because we didn't know you. Sorry. And this was Leanne's graduation from dental school, dinner the night before. And this was later. This is our first grandson.
No, that's
This is our
right.
first grandchild. Huh? So this is our second grandson. What happens when they all look alike? So Rita had been through some chemotherapy, and so had lost her hair, but then it grew back, and then she sort of would lose it and it would grow back, depending on where she was in treatment. Rita was very courageous with all of this. So there we are. This is my granddaughter. This is Leanne's first, right? And I'm wearing my birthday shirt. I'm also wearing it now. This is my celebration shirt that I wear for all happy occasions. So I bought another shirt to wear, but I thought, no, it's not appropriate. So I put this on. Anyway. And, you know, the Hawaii Dental Association was really something that my wife cherished too. She did a lot of things with them early on, and I was a delegate. I was delegate to the ADA for our association, along with Gary Unimoto and Neil Nunakawa. And Gary's wife, Toy, is on Rita's right, and Betty Nunakawa is on Rita's left. And they just had great times together. She really enjoyed the White Elm Association, and she liked the fact that it would send me on trips. I would go places for anywhere from 3 to 7 days. It's always nice getting Dad out of the house for a while. So this was a Christmas party right here in this room. And this was, I think they're called the Golden Threads. Crystal, what are they called?
Touch of gold.
Oh, Touch of Gold, thank you. Touch of Gold, they were really good. So the guy wanted me to sing to my wife. My wife doesn't allow me to sing in the shower. So I'm looking at her and she's like, well, you must. So he's trying to encourage me. So I'm singing. Not sure where it's going. But it ended up okay. So that was one of our Christmas balls that we would go to, and they were always a lot of fun. So the White Dental Association actually played a big role. So that's why a number of dentists are here. They're all of our friends. My wife decided she wasn't busy enough, so she started this Red Hat Society chapter. There were a number of them around, and we probably have some people here. I know we have people here who are at Red Hat Society. And she started it, and it went great, but then when she was going to become president of a Rotary Club, she said, you know, I can't do both. And she tried to give it off to somebody, but nobody else wanted it. They said, we see all the work that it takes. Nah, that's all right. So it kind of folded where they blended in with some other clubs. But Rosemary Giasoli's right there up front. She's here. And Jan Boxhold's in the picture. And I'm going to move on. These are two of my favorite people, even though they're in tuxedos. This was a fundraiser. This is Ayman El Cockney and Paul Jersak. Is that how you say it? Yeah. Paul. I knew another Jersak when I was in the Army, and so I always wanted to call him Jay, because Jay Jersak was a very good friend of mine, but his name is Paul, so I can't call him Jay. But every once in a while it would slip, and I'd always have to apologize. But they were wonderful people that helped my wife during her year. But what was tough about her year as president is Ayman was a district governor. And whenever you're a district governor in a club, you kind of take all the good people out of the club to help you as a district governor. And so you're left with kind of a skeleton to cope with for a year. Well, Ayman took his good people, but Rita was good enough that she talked the rest of them into working, and she actually won Club of the Year for the large club, and it wasn't even close. I don't know how she did it. Well, I know I helped a lot, but she did it. I always had my list, never without a list. So those two guys were real special. And so this was Rotary. I think this was, she was being celebrated for something. Kind of looks like her picture here. Rita was always being celebrated. This was probably one of the happier days of her life. This is when she's passing on the gavel to the next president. And John couldn't be with us. John's traveling. That's what he does for a living. And he sent his regrets. So this is us celebrating our 50th wedding anniversary. And COVID hit, and it's like, well, where can we go to eat? Because we were tired of eating at home. And for your 50th anniversary, you should go somewhere. So one of the places that was last on our list to ever eat was the Elks Club. But we went to the Elks Club because it was open air, your hair can go through, you don't have to worry about wearing a mask, but they made you wear a mask anyway. They even had a mask on the moose as you walked in the door. No mask, no food. This was another project that Rita found out about. My daughter, who worked at the Regional Medical Center, was talking in terms of how they show the kids, children who are going to have surgery, they show them with little dolls. someone says, oh, I can make you dolls. So she gets on Amazon, gets a Singer sewing machine delivered to the house, and a bunch of material, and so she makes these up. She was very creative. She actually was an art minor and could just sit and draw. She could just draw. She's just a fabulous artist, very creative and colorful woman. And she still married me. That's why I'm having this for her. I'm thanking her for all these years that she was just so wonderful for being my wife. And this is Duke's mother, who now lives in Durango, Colorado. They used to have the Museum here and the Home of the Brave Museum, and they moved everything to Durango. Now, this is special. I took this off the wall at the Cancer Center. You know, we're having this on Sunday. I was scheduled to have it on Saturday at the Pacific Club. I was ready to sign contracts. But I called them up on a Saturday, because that's when Rita always went on Saturday, so I knew they'd be there. But they never called me back. So I was waiting for the call, and then they called me on Monday. So, of course, I did call late. I called about 2-ish in the afternoon. They called me Monday, and I said, hey, can you guys get off on a Saturday to come to this? It's just going to be around the corner. I said, no, we can't do anything on a Saturday. We're here till 3:30, 4 o'clock. I said, really, none of you? She goes, nope, none of us. So I canceled it. And I said, sorry, Pacific Club, I'm not doing it here. So Leanne had contacted this place, the Cassella, and found out that they did have opening for today, Sunday. So called them back and said, hey, hold that spot for us. So then I made arrangements for us to have it because I wanted the cancer people to be here. I cannot tell you how much she appreciated what you guys did. And our internist that got us started on all this stuff is sitting here too, Dr. Hauk, John Hauk. He's my internist too, so I got to talk nice about him. But he was wonderful. He sent us to the cancer, on-care cancer. It was Dr. Cho originally, then was taken over by Dr. Tamura. And Dr. Cho has got a wonderful reputation, but I got to tell you, according to my wife, Dr. Tamura is top-notch. He's the guy that kept her alive, and that he really appreciates what he did for her. And Kaya would make her the appointments. So they're sitting here too. Thank you so much for coming and for spending this time with us. Special people. So the picture that you see here, and I had two of them made because I like the first one, but I'm a dentist of sorts. And if you look in this picture, there's a little white spot on the tooth. And I'm not sure if that was gum or if it was a chiclet or what she had there. And I said, I need another picture. I said, you got to tone that down. And so they did that. And I was able to pick it up yesterday for today. So the good picture's out there. And the one with the white is far enough away, it's over here, along with the wreath. So anyway, we don't know what that is. But, you know, my wife enjoyed, she wasn't an alcoholic by any stretch. She'd have maybe one glass of wine a week. Very seldom drink hard liquor, although she's been known to. And but she would drink some wine and beer. In fact, I think one of her doctors, I'm not sure which one, whether it's Dr. Howe or Dr. Tamura, someone suggested that she drink some beer once in a while. So I went out and bought her beer. And she wouldn't drink a lot of that. I still have it in the refrigerator. So if you want a beer, come by the house. And that's her being very happy at the end of her Rotary time. So that's my wife. She was quite a lady. I mean, she really was. She was, in her illness, she was more interested in how you were doing than how she was doing. She knew how she was. And she wanted to know that you're doing okay. Very nurturing, unbelievable. And that's why, when she taught at Punahou, they gave her tough kids. They gave her kids that they were kind of ready to bounce out of. And they said, well, let's see if Rita can handle it. And I've got letters that were written by grandparents to the president of Punahou thanking them for what she did for turning their child around. She looked on everybody as an individual. She didn't clump them together as you're just a classroom, you're a class of people. You're an individual student, and she tailored her class for that. One of her students, the mother was a PhD chemist that taught at Punahou. She referred to Rita's class as AP 4th grade. Now, those of you that don't know what AP means, advanced placement. And so she thought it was tough to get through Rita's class. But Rita made it so you had to stay on top of things. And all the assignments were out. You could get them at any time, but you have to do it yourself. Shouldn't depend on your parents. Just got a letter about 2 years ago. My kid had just got his PhD. Sent her a letter thanking her. He said, what you instilled on me, he said, took me through my entire educational aspect. And so, I mean, those are the testimonies that you just can't say enough about. But anyway, thank you so much from the bottom of my heart for coming here. We have more speakers. It's not just me, sorry. But I'm probably the longest that I've had. I also like to take one other thing is part of the program was Mia. Mia was a physical therapist that came by the house once or twice a week, and I swear she added at least 3 to 6 months to my wife's longevity, because Rita looked forward to her coming and just walking her around the pool or rubbing her legs or doing something for her. But her coming there, just when she left, my wife was just very, very happy. And so, man, thank you so much for what you did. My daughters are coming up next. Thanks.
Hi. We will be more brief, don't worry, but we, you know, Leanne and I feel like we were blessed with the greatest parents in the world, because we were, and we still are. When Leanne wrote things down and prepared, I'm going to talk because I tried to write things down, but when it came down to it, the only phrase I wrote down was, my mom was the best. And that's because she was. She was the best mom. She was our best friend. She was the best wife. She was the best teacher. She, like my dad said, the kids that other teachers were about to give up on, my mom made them love school again. She made them feel good about themselves, where they wanted to come to school and they believed in themselves. And that was the kind of person that she was. She helped you see who you were, and she helped you see your potential. And she did that for all her students, and she did that for us. And everything that I am is because of her. She helped me be brave. She helped me learn what I love. She helped me be a good mother. I am so grateful that Mom was still alive when we had kids, because holy hell, would this be difficult if she wasn't. She was the best grandmother, and she was able to, I feel like, show me how to be a good mom, because she was a good mom. She was the best, and the big things that seemed overwhelming, she made them seem small and put things in perspective. That photo of her with the medical play dolls, my mom was going through some really tough treatment during that time, and her therapy that she decided to do was to do something for other little kids going through the same type of chemo. So she made all these dolls for the little kids going through chemo at my hospital. She was an angel here on earth, and now she is an angel with us. She loved dragonflies, and I don't know if anyone has seen more dragonflies lately, but I sure have. Right after she passed, I was walking around our medical campus, and I was just having a bit of a moment, and all of a sudden something just torpedoed into the side of my head. There was a dragonfly about this big, and I was like, "You're right, Mom. You can't be sad about that, because she had such a good life, and she made everyone's life so much better." So I'm grateful that I was her daughter, and this is one of my favorite pictures of her, because she was always ready to celebrate something, and she brought people together so that they could celebrate too. So we're all here today celebrating her, and this is just her pretty much toasting like she always did, because she was always down for a good celebration.
She was. And growing up, Dena, Mom, and I were inseparable. It was the three of us always. We went to school together, we came home together, we were always together. She was an incredibly devoted mother. She modeled to us positive behavior. She was kind, she was gentle. She was the person we turned to for comfort. She supported us through our toughest moments, and she always listened, and she never criticized. And I knew I loved her, but I didn't know how important she was till I had kids.
Till we had kids too.
Because you don't understand how selfless a mother's love is until you show your own children that selflessness. She was authentically selfless. She was always thinking about others' needs above her own. Shortly after my wedding, my mom's brother Merle, who she was very, very close to, and it was her last living immediate relative, passed away. And so we all flew to Boise, Idaho, to have a service for him and help manage his belongings. And the service we had happened to be a year after my wedding. So in the midst of grieving her brother and planning a service, my mom packed up our 1-year-old wedding cake that she had kept in her freezer for a whole year and carried it from Hawaii to Idaho to surprise Jason and I on our 1-year anniversary. She loved to celebrate, and she made a very difficult event into something very fun and positive that we all laughed about, because it is terrible to eat 1-year-old wedding cakes. We have so many wonderful stories to share about her, but we will keep it brief.
We're not going to do that right now.
And I know you all do too. So if you have a great memory to share, there are cards at all the tables with a pen. Our family would be greatly appreciative if you would like to share something with us that we can read later.
Mrs. Cassella cared about every one of her students. This is my niece, Emily Metcalf, who had Mrs. Cassella in first grade. Rita called her parents in and informed them that Emily did not know how to read. She was so smart that she had memorized all of her books and pretended she was reading. Rita taught her to read.
And so thank you all for being here today and for celebrating her with us.
Yeah, thank you.
We have just one more speaker, and she's a friend of my wife's who got her involved with the Red Hat Society, and they just developed a very unique friendship over the years. And so I'd like for her to come and say a few words. Layla, are you still here?
I'm here. Aloha, everyone. You all know that the reason you're here is because Rita loved you. That's why you're here. We know that if we had a chance to bring all of her friends here, there wouldn't be enough room. So you're the select friends who are attending this beautiful celebration. Rita and I met at a Queen's luncheon. We were both Red Hat Society Queens. And have you ever met someone and immediately felt a connection? I feel that I've known her for many lifetimes, not only this one. We could not understand how this Italian woman from Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, and this part Hawaiian little girl from Hawaii forged such a close friendship. And we were just so, so happy to do that. Rita and I had a lot of co-op events. She would bring us over to Punaho. We'd make dragons for Chinese New Year and put them in the kiln. We went to Peggy Chun's home in Manoa more than one time, 2, 3 times, taking art classes or singing and dancing for Peggy. She taught us to paint when she could hold the paintbrush in her teeth. And we had the most invigorating experiences. Everything we did together with our chapters had a fun aspect and a learning aspect. There was one time that was really interesting. The Red Hat Society had an international documentary. So we were featured in that documentary. And we were in a drumming session, and they were filming us, came around us, and then we all burst out onto the lawn and began to dance hula. So somewhere in the archives, we are in there. It was a wonderful, wonderful time. Let's see now. After her chapter folded, we continued our friendship, but without red hats. Rita was that bright light that everybody recognized. Nobody was a stranger. She was kind and gracious and open. I look back and I say she was a woman of the world. She was cosmopolitan in her attitude. Her children at Punaho were taken down to Chinatown during Chinese New Year, so they would understand what the rituals were. She had Girls' Day and Boys' Day at the school with the statues and figures, and she was just amazingly open. Joanne Suzuki, who is sitting with me here, we were part of the 3 amigas we called ourselves. And I will quote what Joanne said when I asked her about Rita. She said, "Her spirit prevails throughout our lives. When confronted with a problem, I now ask, what would Rita do? Her concern was always for others, never for herself. She was grace personified. She was unpretentious and kind. In the many years that Rita endured her traumatic treatments at times, she never complained. Others would have buckled. She thanked, she was filled with gratitude. She was happy that she had the most wonderful family. Her girls were her pride and joy. Ed was the man of steel. And she had the best doctor, she said, and the best treatment wherever she went. This is what Rita loved. Number 1, the FaceTime episodes every day with the grandbabies and her daughters. She was so excited, she looked forward to that. She loved dragonflies. Everything that when I'd be out shopping, I'd see a dragonfly. I said, oh, Rita has to have this. She loved the healing massages that her friends administered so joyfully. She had just the most wonderful heartfelt chats where her quiet wisdom showed, and we learned so much from her. Now, these are her delicacies. She loved miso butter fish. She loved dim sum. And because of your trip to Korea, she loved Korean food. But most of all, the old spaghetti house, pasta with Mizithra cheese. And I think the girls used to send gift certificates or have food delivered to the home with this, so Rita would be happy. Ed, I know you said keep it light, but I gotta tell you, she referred to you as her man of steel. You always, I marvel at how strong and protective and adamant you were in that she got the best treatment. He would not leave the hospital even when the nurses threatened to kick him out. He would be there until he thought she was taken care of in the right way. You were committed, your courage and loyalty, incomparable. Thank you. Thank you. I remember sitting at the table and watching you. She had come home with a feeding apparatus, and you were there, tubes everywhere, and he was injecting this in here and that in there, and explaining as he went along, just so that she could be taken care of. You're wonderful, just wonderful. So, Leanne and Dena, your mother's legacy is in you. I see her shining through your eyes. You look like her, you're kind and generous like her, and the way you raise your children, just like how she raised you. Thank you for allowing her to continue in you. Oh, I can't forget her little cat, Chinny. He's a tuxedo kitty, and he has a little black spot right on his chin, so she named him Chinny. And he would miss her, but when she'd come home, and when she'd doze off, he'd crawl into her lap. This is the past couple of months, right, Ed? And he'd just, stay there, keeping her warm and comfy. So Chinny was another one of her loves. Being that Rita and I were insomniacs, she because of her chemo treatment, and I because I'm a night owl, we would text each other at around 11:30 or midnight, and we'd say, what we did during the day, and just chit-chat. And we also loved to watch My Lottery Treehouse, and we comment on, good Lord, we can buy a home with a pool for $200,000. And to this day, when I get into bed, I grab my phone, and I say, oh, I can't text her. For one thing, my plan doesn't go to heaven. But I know she's there. My pet name for her for years now has been Rita Lani. It just sounded so good together. Lani means of the heavens, and she's there. So thank you all. I know you impacted her life in a big way, and she impacted yours. So Rita is free and happy and watching us today. Thank you so much.
There's still time, I think, to eat. If we could get the lights back up, because I don't want anybody falling around as they're trying to. Thank you so much. Thank you all for coming. Really special. This meant a lot to my family and to me, and it does to Rita too. We miss her, but she wanted this to be a happy affair. She didn't want this to be a mourning, she wanted it to be a celebration. That's why I wore this shirt. I didn't wear anything dark, and I didn't encourage anybody else to either. All of you had some kind of a function and her happiness. So none of you in here ever made her sad. Thank you. Thank you so much.